Right, dude, do you want me to do it?
Hello, I'm here live with 4 other people who are wrestling fans and all have disabilities. We're going to talk a little bit about their experiences in wrestling and how they use wrestling as escapism, as well as any experiences that they've had. So stick with us.
This is the hardcore legend, Mick Foley. Well, hello and welcome to Give Me a Holler Yeah. I hope everyone there, right there in Yorkshire, is having a nice day. Bang, bang. Have a nice day. Yeah.
Hello and a very warm welcome to the Give Me a Holler Yeah Wrestling podcast. My name is Anne and today we're doing something a little bit different. We've invited some people on the channel, both who either work in wrestling or have their own YouTube shows and stuff like that, so they can tell you a little bit about that. And all of these people have disabilities, and while we all use wrestling as escapism, or I'd assume we all use wrestling as escapism of some sort, these people have different experiences with wrestling, from giving hope and stuff like that, as well as we can find out their experience from live events and whatnot in the future. Guys, I'm Anthony. I'm going to go through and introduce. If you could introduce yourselves and what you do, and also tell us a little bit about your channel and your disability, so that people know exactly what we're dealing with. Cool. Let's go. You're the experienced one, Dom. Let's go.
Hello. Well, I am the co-host of the Give Me a Holler Yeah Wrestling podcast. We do interviews with WWE stars, Impact stars, etc., etc. I also have an alternative arts and culture publication called Soundsphere, and we do music and arts and wrestling and stuff. I have cerebral palsy, and I have met a lot of these fine folk that are with us, and we've talked a lot about accessibility, about why we love wrestling, and that's why we had the idea really of bringing everybody together today.
Rock and roll. Let's go, Tom.
Hey, man.
Hi. I wasn't paying attention there. I'm not going to lie. So, also known as Tom Talks Rubbish in the wrestling media sphere. I have a YouTube channel where I have been lucky enough to interview many of the greats in the wrestling media, such as the Cotaholic Crew, the What Culture Crew, Brian Zane from Wrestling With Regret, including these fine gentlemen that you see below me. But I am also the co-host of Bodyslam.net's Wrestle Watch podcast with Cassidy Hain. My disability is cerebral palsy, and I am a wheelchair user.
Rock and roll. Wheelchair bound all the time, Tom?
Did I cut out there?
No, it's all good. Are you wheelchair bound all the time, Tom?
Yeah, wheelchair bound 99.9% of the time.
Oh, what that! I hope that seat's comfy. Is all I'm going to say. Let's go to Anthony. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing good. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony. I'm from the Anthony podcast and the Anthony YouTube channel. On the Anthony podcast, I interview people from all different types of backgrounds and all different types of professions. I've had Dom and Tom on the podcast plenty of times, and I have cerebral palsy like Tom, but my cerebral palsy is a lot more severe, and I use a wheelchair all of the time.
Great. Thank you, man. That's yeah. It's strange, isn't it, how we can have cerebral palsy, 2 people with cerebral palsy, that's completely different in terms of how disabling it is as well. And that's something that I think is quite interesting to sort of point out. Let's talk to my friend, Robert. How you doing, Robert?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm Robert DeFelice. I'm from Fightful. I also work with WrestleZone and Smart Out Moment. I also have cerebral palsy, so we're 4 for 4. And I've been a wrestling fan all my life.
We should have just called this a cerebral palsy live stream. Absolutely.
At this point, it really is.
The CPP get together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming on and talking a little about your experiences. So Dom had the idea for this podcast. So let's hear what Dom's experience with wrestling and disability was.
Yeah, so basically, the reason why I kind of brought everyone together was because I wanted to talk about the connection that I felt as a young person with cerebral palsy, being told that I wasn't capable of doing certain things. All of us have discussed this in various interviews with each other, but basically, when I was younger, wrestling gave me not only an escapism, but it gave me a character. Or characters to invest in and to see myself in a little bit. So when I was having operations and being cut open and in hospital beds and things like that, I was watching Mick Foley and kind of seeing how he had this exceptional pain threshold and had his ear chopped off and like was this sort of star, even though he didn't look, he wasn't like, Dwayne The Rock Johnson good looking, and he kind of walked a little funny. And I know it was of nothing, it's nothing connected to cerebral palsy or disability, but I saw a lot of myself in him when I needed it. And I'm not trying to say, because obviously Mick Foley's a global star, but what I mean is when I needed a reason to go through the pain that I was going through and to understand why I was being, why I was in physiotherapy and why I was being bent, which way, whatever, and being cut open. Mick Foley and his pain threshold and the way that he connected with people, connected with me to a point that it gave me a lot of hope, if that makes sense. And I think hope is a buzzword that, I use quite a lot. So for me, that was why I wanted to bring you guys here, was like, because we're here to talk about what it is about wrestling that gives us, people with disabilities. Because there are a lot of people, there's people in the comments, people with ADHD, our moderator Jack as well, who have disabilities, and I kind of wanted to explore that connection with people that know what it's like. So that's kind of why you guys are here. But for me personally, wrestling was an escapism, but not only that, it gave me role models and people to look up to when I needed them the most, I think.
That's great. Does anyone else want to talk about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I can
rock and roll. We'll go Rob first, and then we'll go Tom. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, wrestling was definitely a form of escapism, even when you're not aware of what that is. I can honestly say I didn't look at wrestling as like, oh, I see myself in so and so, because I was always kind of hyper aware that these people jumping off of ladders and through tables, that wasn't me. But it was a very comforting thing in a time where I didn't know how to deal with a lot of things. So wrestling definitely helped in that way. But I can honestly say, as far as hope, I think wrestling connected with me because the characters just give you something to invest in. And that is something that you can never take for granted, whether it's wrestling or any form of entertainment. Having that thing to invest in and to escape from is invaluable to me. And that's been my journey with wrestling, just disability or not. Like that's what wrestling provides for me.
That's interesting. So as opposed to it being something where you saw yourself in someone, it was just a pure escapism and getting invested in a story and a character, which is what helped you.
Oh, absolutely. Because again, while there are great examples of underdogs, Mick Foley, Rey Mysterio, I never looked at that and said, oh, I can be Mick Foley. I looked at that and said, man, I love this so much. It makes me forget the fact that like I'm struggling moving around, Yeah. Man. And that's what wrestling is for me.
Tough. It seems like we've got a lot of people agreeing. Tom, tell us about your experience, my dude.
I'd say I relate to Rob's story a bit more than Dom's, because I never had that thought of like, I relate to these wrestlers because I'd never had that thought of like, I'm going to get up on whatever birthday and be able to walk and jump off of a ladder. But also, wrestling helped me bond with a family member. I don't know if I've ever spoke about this, but like my parents are divorced. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this.
No.
And for a while, I couldn't bond with my dad because of things that had happened. So I bonded with my dad a lot over wrestling, as weird as that sounds.
And that's part of what wrestling is. No, it's not weird at all. Wrestling can bring people together. Wrestling's something that we talk about. It's weekly TV that we get excited about, and that's why we all have podcasts or work in the media. It's all because we get excited about the constant new news that's coming up, I think. So really interesting. Anthony, do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey into escapism or how it was for you?
Yeah, I think my story is very similar to Rob's. obviously, I never said to myself, I can become a wrestler or anything like that. But the way they throw the stories in the ring, it took me on the roller coaster. If you know what I mean. If you know what I mean. And the way the characters were presented, I felt it was like a superhero film. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do compare wrestling to superhero films because we are seeing larger than life characters. Is that something else that you guys are all interested in as another media? It'd be interesting to know.
Well, I am.
If you all
Yes.
like superheroes.
Yeah.
Not as much as not as big as wrestling, but it's definitely something that I'm interested in. As weird as that.
Interesting. Well, have you got any experience from sort of? Is there any sort of particular wrestler that you identified with? We'll start with Anthony on this one because he's on screen. Is there any wrestler that you've identified with, or the story of a struggle in particular, which you've sort of used as inspiration in your life?
I would say Brian Danielson. Obviously, when it first started, it was like the late 90s, early 2000s, and he at the time was very big guy, heavy. So obviously, he had to travel around the world, early stripes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And now he getting the plaudits he deserves. So I can relate to that. Because when I was born, I was supposed to be non-verbal, and I had to prove to people that I can make content that is compelling to people. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that you all do. I mean, we'll talk about that in a bit, about how you create content with disability as well. But it's interesting that you said Daniel Bryan, who's a very positive character. Let's have a word with Tom. Tell us about your inspirational wrestler.
So, as a kid, it was Batista, just because I thought he was so cool with the way he wore shades. And as I did more research into him, because I wasn't comfortable talking about things, finding out that he had a fear of public speaking was something that I related to, because I couldn't do school plays. I couldn't do things like that because I just thought people would be looking at my differences, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense, man. Yeah.
But then as I got older, it was very similar to Anthony, and I feel like I'm taking a lot of people's stories. It's just that we have a lot of similar things. It's like, it was Daniel Bryan, but it was specifically the 2014, because I was going to college that year and I was being told I wouldn't be able to do anything. I'd be in, I don't know what the equivalent is in America, Rob, but like almost like a special needs course where like you do like painting and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah.
And I got a degree in media, so I was like, I could do stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you know, I think your disabilities can have physical impact on what you can do, but in terms of and mental to a point as well, especially with cerebral palsy. But it's always about pushing yourself and achieving. And I think that all of you have proven that can be done. Let's move on to Rob. I'd just like to say we've got loads of comments, which is brilliant. I'm going to try and focus it on these four guys for now. We will get to your comments at the end. But what I'd and there's potential. A few people are saying that they want to come on and talk about the disability, which is absolutely something that we can look at doing in the future. So at the minute, we'll just do this, and maybe we can do individual ones in the future as well. But I think it is a fascinating topic. So let's listen to Rob and about identifying with anyone, and if that sort of provided inspiration within his.
I mean, honestly, when you talk about identifying, like I identify more with the stories behind the scenes, like Mick Foley's journey into wrestling, a CM Punk's journey growing up and the adversities that he had to face. In terms of identifying with characters, I always sort of picked my favorites based on who were like the antithesis of me, like an Edge who was very self-assured and confident, and you use that as inspiration of who you want to be rather than, okay, cool, I think I can be this person, I'm this person now. It becomes, who do I want to be in life?
Yeah.
That's the way I viewed wrestling. But of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, Gregory Iron, who is a wrestler with cerebral palsy. And I did use that as inspiration of like, okay, maybe there's a route for me to get in the ring. Obviously, that never happened, but that did make it seem possible for a short period of time there.
That's fascinating. And so I mean, obviously you work with Fightful Selects now, so obviously you are working within the backstage area as well. And that was your real interest, the real life stories of struggles of people as opposed to the characters.
I've always been more fascinated with the creative and behind the scenes aspect of it to begin with. But of course, anyone who is around wrestling wants to eventually be a wrestler. And I always found it more interesting of, okay, how do you do that? How do you become a Paul Heyman? How do you become a Mick Foley?
Yeah.
And is it also about sharing them stories, Rob, as well? Because obviously that's what you do with your career.
Yeah, I think so. I think because depending on the person, you never know who you're impacting. Like right now we're doing this. You don't know who you're reaching. And I've had that a lot while working at Fightful, where people do come to you and say, I have a disability. Thanks for representing. And that's something I've talked about this with Dom. I never intended to do that, but I'm glad that that's an outlet for me now that I can do that for others.
I think it is inspirational what you all do, and I think that people will certainly be inspired by you. Dom, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's what I said before. I mean, when I was talking before, it wasn't necessarily that I could, that I felt, because I think Rob's answers and you guys' answers were much more articulate than mine, which is usually the case. I think it was more that I saw something to be inspired by. Like, I didn't think I was going to, because I've always walked with two sticks. I've always, so I didn't think I was going to sort of be like a Mick Foley, but I certainly saw how hard he had to work to get to where he is. A bit like Rob was saying, he was sleeping in the back of his car and stuff like that. The real hard work. And I think that's still with me today. The hard work, the graft, you work for something and you find ways to get it done. Mick Foley was never going to be the poster child of WWE, but he found a way to endear himself to the fans. And I think that and I know Anthony Neylon, you and I have talked about this a lot, the characters and well, what we've just mentioned really. But for me, it was Mick Foley, and it was that it was the underdog, and it wasn't necessarily that I saw myself and I thought I was going to get up and walk and be a wrestler, because that wasn't it. But it was like, okay, all right, there's a guy on TV that wears a sock on his hand. He's got long hair, and he's a bit of a weirdo, but people love him. So that's, I'm not going to wear a sock on my hand, but I'm a bit of a weirdo.
Yes, you are.
Hopefully I can build a career for myself, not to global superstardom to the level that, that Mick Foley or Rob DeFelice or the people here, Anthony and Tom Talks Rubbish, you guys have got really great platforms, perhaps not to that level, but I can do something that matters, and I think that's what it comes down. Maybe it is as plain as that. It's doing something that means something to somebody other than me. I've waffled on, haven't I? It's the
no, it's all good, man.
No, I totally get what you mean by that.
I know what you meant.
Yeah,
I think the other thing, Dom, because I know you very well. Obviously, we've been friends for too long. You wasn't actually walking for a long time. You was wheelchair bound for many years, and you've spoken the past
you
to
were
me
16, correct?
that's right. Yeah, well remembered, dude.
Yeah, 16. So and you were saying how wrestling was something that inspired you during that time, and you was talking in the past about how you was stuck in bed watching wrestling after these sort of major operations, and it was the relief that you couldn't get from anywhere else.
100%.
Tell us a bit about that, man.
I've been there.
Yeah,
You've been there.
Exactly, and I'll be as brief as I can be. But it was that Mick Foley. It was the pain threshold thing. It was like Mick Foley was doing these things despite having like real life health issues as well as on screen. But like, he did his legs in and his back in, and he had half of his ear chopped off. But when I was in pain, like it really sucked, but I was like, okay, so that guy can deal with it. and I don't mean to. And when I say deal, I mean, you know, this was a long time ago. Now I'm a lot more open. Rob and I have talked about, you know, we've all talked about being more open about, you know, how we're feeling and our mental health, physical health, etc. But back in the day, it really helped me to cope with the pain. It really helped me to do things. And the reason why I left, you know, I was in a wheelchair. I'm still supposed to be in a wheelchair part-time. The reason why I chose to use my sticks, because obviously, you know, like you guys, you know, obviously different levels, we're all, you know, in a degree of pain. It was because I could and because I had the opportunity to. And there are a lot of people, you know, in the world that you know, do amazing things with their time, but they don't have the luxury of being able to stand up. So for me, it was, even though there was a lot of pain and even though there still remains and takes a toll on my body, I was like, okay, I am going to try this. I am going to do this. And that was when I was 16 and I'm now mid 30s, you know? So I owe a lot of that, as cheesy as it sounds, to the representation of Mick Foley on screen and also off screen. Cause it was like, okay, if he can do it, it's obviously different. And I'm not trying to say we're the same because we're not, but yeah. Does that make
The thing
sense?
I love about that
Yeah.
is Mick Foley is the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah,
And you would love knowing that he had that impact on you. So that's really cool. And probably a byproduct of his career that he never expected either, you know? He's just trying to live his dream and he's inspired a different generation of people in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have
Very
you
good point.
interviewed him yet, Dom?
Yeah, I interviewed him years ago, but for his comedy tour, but I didn't get a chance because of the nature of the beast and the time we had. I didn't get a chance to tell him the story. But
A full-length interview on Give Me a Whole Yeah would be cool.
One day, man. One day, I told him I got to tell him that he inspired me in brief, but obviously, you know, he gets that a lot. So one day, if I get the opportunity to tell him the full story, I will do. Yeah.
Tell us about how it's helped you, Tom, in terms of like through a really dark time in particular.
So I have another condition called hydrocephalus. Do you guys know what that is at all?
No, please do explain, man.
So it is basically water on the brain. You know, like your brain has fluid that protects it. Basically, when I was born, I had a bleed on my brain, and now my brain produces too much fluid to try and negate that from happening again, if that makes any sense. So now I have something called a shunt, which is basically like a drainage system that gets rid of the excess fluid. So anyway, the point of the story was it helped me through a tough time because I had to go get my shunt replaced. They have about a 10-year shelf life before you have to get them replaced, and that results in severe headaches, etc. if you don't get it replaced, and your brain can actually swell and you can die if you don't get it replaced.
Right.
So the point of the story was I went and got it replaced, but I was in hospital for a month where the operation kept going wrong. So literally every time my dad would come visit on a Friday, going back to my dad again, on a Friday, he'd bring me a new wrestling DVD, mainly from Blockbusters. Like, that was the thing. It was like, he'll look for a DVD from Blockbusters. I don't know if you guys remember Blockbusters.
Yeah, man.
Well, Rob, do you know Blockbusters? A VHS store.
Yeah. It was the American. It's an American thing. It was American before.
Oh, was it?
Before I got to us, it was yeah.
Okay, so he'd bring me one of them, normally a large pizza and stuff like that. And that is another thing, like, and I remember watching, I think it was Mania 22, I can't remember off the top of my head, and just looking at the crowd being like, I've got to get better, not because I want to perform one day, but because I want to be there one day. And that was very wordy. I do apologize, Jen.
No, that's perfect, man. That's perfect. Anthony, do you want to talk about any specific sort of things? Because I think this is interesting to sort of hear your personal stories. This is fascinating, guys.
So when I used to go into hospital for my surgery, I don't know whether anybody will remember this. Did you remember them portable DVD players?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
man.
Oh yeah.
I had one. I had one of them, and I used to take a couple of DVDs and we used to balance it on the bed. And while I was on my stomach or having a video done, I used to watch them. So it got me through through physiotherapy. So yeah.
Nice, man. Now, which DVDs was it? Because I'm sure you watched them over and over again.
I think I seem to remember watching Mania 24 a lot.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? We've just been talking about video shops and stuff like this, and actually, it's kind of something that's missing today because we've got the network. We can just go back and watch what the hell we want. But back in the day, I had a Royal Rumble 1993 VHS, which got played to death. Absolutely watching that all the time.
I think you told me one of the matches didn't work anymore because you played it so much, if that's correct.
Yeah, I wore the tape out. Robert, do you want to share any experiences, man?
I mean, much like everybody here, I just watched wrestling all the time. Still do, obviously. I still work in it. I just every day watching, whether it's SummerSlam 90 or Survivor Series 90. I had a bunch of VHS tapes because we used to tape the pay-per-views as they happened. But I was just obsessed always. And it sounds to me like I might be the only one here who had the idea of, I don't know, maybe I'll try to get in a ring one day. But that was always the goal. Never did happen, but I'll say never say never because life is weird. And, I've always loved wrestling and have been obsessed with it. And I've always done anything I can to learn more, be around it more. It's just my entire life.
Have you ever had the experience of being in the ring, Rob?
Oh, no, not anyway.
Oh man, we need to make that happen. You need to.
It might, like I said, never say never, but
fatal five-way.
I don't know about that. Given the conditions, the fatal might be literal, and we don't.
Absolutely.
Bigging onto Rob's point, if I may.
Absolutely.
I think it was never a goal for me because I had so many surgeries as a kid. And I have quite a low pain threshold. So it was like, fuck that. I have to go through enough surgeries as it is. So if I got injured, I'd have to go through more. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, that is the real factor of it. And that's something that I've always been concerned about as well. And I think that's what's kept me largely out of it. And also, I'm so obsessive over all of it that I would never want to do anything. This is hey, Marco Stunt's in the ring, and there's, we're doing all these different types of body shapes and body sizes. And I was always hyper focused on, I'd never want to do anything to quote unquote degrade the industry or anything like that. So that's a lot of the reasons that kept me out of
training session. You should definitely get to a local training session.
It might happen one day, but I would say never say never.
Absolutely, man.
Ironically, as I've gotten older, I wanted more and more to be like a manager.
Right, cool.
Now that would be cool. I'll say that.
That'd be real cool, Anthony.
Yeah, I'd be well up to see that. That'd be ace, man. Cool.
Every week could be like a Stone Cold Mick Foley scene with you, dude.
It'd be really cool.
The thing that I think I'd like to do in the wrestling is commentary. I think I love commentary, and I think commentary is a really underappreciated thing.
I think it'd be really interesting to see again more representation, and I guess that's what effectively Rob does, and we all do in a way. I mean, I'm being very I know we all have platforms of various reach, but
Rob's got the biggest platform out of us, man. Put him over.
Yeah, of course I will. But we are effectively commentators in our own right. In our own way. We are all commentators on modern day wrestling. So in a way, Anthony, you are getting that. That is what you are doing. Obviously, there are different levels to that, but it's I that's what I believe. Anyway, I don't know if...
Yeah, absolutely. Commentating and providing a point of view. One of the interesting things that I've always found about our podcast, and I assume you can sympathize with this as well, Rob, is where fans commentating on wrestling as opposed to the commentators, which are all part of the story. And I think that's why watch-alongs and backstage news and all that stuff is so sort of fascinating, because we're all invested in hearing more about what happens with the product that we love so much.
Absolutely. And I mean, you guys have said that I have the biggest platform. So I'll take a moment now to say thank you to Sean Ross Sapp and everyone over at Fightful for giving me the platform, because unlike you guys, I'm actually a part of a larger team. You guys have built it on your own and done the very DIY thing, which I think is awesome. But yes, I'm very grateful for the platform that I have. And like I said, the representation comes along with it. And it was never something I intended on, but it's been something that's really cool for me to be able to share with others.
That's really good, man. That's
You
really cool.
talked about building it on its own there. It is cool, and like it is something that I am really proud of. And it took me a while to sort of use my Cassidy Haynes connection. Does anyone get that? Do you understand what I'm saying, Dom?
Yeah,
In the sense of like,
explain it to us.
in the sense of like, when I was pitching to do an interview with someone, I never used to put "I'm the co-host of a podcast with Cassidy Haynes." Now I do, and it took me a while to not accept. Dom, you're good with words. Help me out here.
But it's believing in yourself, isn't it? And that validation. Is it that validation that you kind of
not just that, but I never wanted someone to come on a bit like a conversation me, Anthony, and Dom had a while ago. Like I never wanted someone to come on because of my wheelchair. I never wanted someone to come on because of Cassidy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
That's interesting. And that's something that we could talk about a little bit about, Dom. I mean, when we first started the podcast, we actually had a discussion about your disability, and we said like we're not going to necessarily reference it because I'm always, me and Dom are best friends. We dig each other about a lot of things, and I would never do that on the podcast and never mention that he had a disability because at the start. What we wanted was to say that we are just two people, enjoy us for two people, and don't see the disability. Do you want to talk a bit about that and why we made that decision as well, Dom? Because that was all your sort of choice, obviously.
Yeah, well, we discussed it, and obviously we at first, very much like Tom, we've all discussed, but Rob as well has discussed. I wasn't. Obviously, people see, and it actually came up when I believe it was Tom and Anthony. You talked to me initially. I think you kind of assumed that you couldn't really see my disability, and that's the interesting thing, because with this platform the way it was, you only get this much. So like most people wouldn't know unless I mention it. So at first I wasn't comfortable, in the same way Rob has talked about publicly with me and other people before. I wasn't comfortable with it, but then as time progressed, and as I qualified as a counsellor and things like a therapist, and as I kind of worked with that side of myself, I realised that it's something to be very proud of. And it wasn't that I wasn't proud of it before, but it was something that because everybody saw it all the time in my my whole life. People see me walking with sticks and my wobble as I call it. That's where the wobbling about and rocking out thing comes from. Cheap plug. Yeah.
Wait, we've all been on there.
There you go. So people saw that.
Sorry, Anne.
No, it's good.
Apologies.
I love it.
Yeah.
No, I love it, man. I love it. It's good. People saw that my whole life, and that was all people kind of for a while. That was what people associated with me. So this gave me a chance to completely start fresh. But as Rob said in the interview with me, after time, you're like, oh, hang on, I can be a small representation. I can represent my community, my people. No, you know what I mean. Yeah, you know what I mean. I can represent people with cerebral palsy. I was the only person, from what I knew, in the journalism media scrum for Clash at the Castle. But I was there. I did it. It was really hard, but I was there, and hopefully I can go back. And people were asking me questions about what it's like to be working journalism with cerebral palsy. So, and for me, it's always and Rob has talked to me about this before. You've all talked to me about this before. It's about being. If you're there and people are seeing you, then they're they're learning and they're being educated. That they can ask questions and they can understand that there's not always limitations. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Totally, yeah.
Us being visible. Rob on his platform, Fightful, Tom, Anthony, and ourselves. because we're visible, and we're talking about this stuff, then maybe one person, 2 people, 10 people go, oh man, maybe I'll start a channel, or maybe I'll become a journalist, or that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get what you mean, man.
Can I just say something?
Of course, man.
Going back to what Tom said earlier about sometimes feeling like people might just come on just because of your disability. Yeah. The one thing I would say, if you have people on and it turns out they did just come on because of that, I would say don't feel bad about it, because at the end of the day, you've literally done nothing wrong.
No,
Absolutely.
and I do agree with what you're saying, man. It's just like, I want my work to speak for myself. Do you know what I mean, chaps?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you have somebody on and it turns out down the line that they did come on for the wrong reasons, don't take it personally. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, it's
totally.
interesting what you're saying, Anthony, and you. I think for you as well, you're kind of the other end of it as well. It's very difficult for you to hide your disability through being on screen. So tell us a little bit about that. So you get people come on for the disability, but I'd assume the reason you've got a following and the reason you build up a community is because people enjoy you, and it becomes not about the disability, but about you and your opinions.
Yeah. And what I find, this is just me as a person. Yeah, I'm very much very honest in my opinion, and obviously nowadays people try and work their own angle, if you know what I mean. People always try and be cozy with people, and I just like to try and be as honest as I can be.
Yeah.
And that's why people care about you. That's why people keep coming back, Tom, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very lucky to have the community that we do and that we've built on this channel. And to be honest, very lucky to have each of your time. I know that Rob's got things to do, Anthony's got things to do, and thank you, Anthony, because I always appreciated your honesty. I've always appreciated your honesty in our chats. Thank you for your on the Anthony podcast. It is sometimes we get down to some quite deep stuff, and I really like that about your podcast, Anthony, and that honesty that's there. That you're right. You miss that sometimes, and I think that we're very grateful for each of you for coming on and spending time with us and reflecting in this way, because it was like I say, it seems that people in the comments are like people are engaging and stuff. So thank you so much for being so open and honest about your experiences.
Thank you all. And now I'd like to move on to something slightly different, because we've all got our own media outlets, all slightly different. And I just want to have a little discussion about how your disability makes that more difficult at times, be that from setting up cameras or whatnot. And I'd like to go to Rob first for this, obviously doing slightly different to what we're doing, working backstage at Fightful. But your experiences of disability and working with the media.
So I've often said, I've said this with Tom and with Dom as well, for me, it's a lot of, it takes me longer to do things. So with writing the news, it might take me longer to transcribe a podcast, or if I'm starting really early in the morning, then, the aches might be a little worse in the morning than they are in the middle of the day, just because you're just getting started, you're just getting warmed up. So for me, that's a lot of what my disability impacts. I would say that I'm fortunate enough to be in a spot right now where I'm very lucky, and that this has actually been very accommodating in nature, to the point where I haven't had to ask for too many extra accommodations, because
you told me it had never really come up with Sean.
And it really doesn't. Like, so doing these interviews now, this is the most I've spoken about it, and I've said this with Dom, to get back to the point of honesty. I only really started bringing it up because at a certain point you have to be honest with yourself, and that can help open doors in its own way. Because, we're in a square here, you wouldn't even need to know if I have a disability or not. So it's just a matter of being honest with you and seeing where that leads in life. But yeah, my job has been very good to me as far as disability is concerned.
And I think that the other thing is, like, by sharing this experience, you can see in chat, like, you are inspiring people by being so honest and talking about it. And especially for younger people, it's a really difficult thing to sort of navigate. And by having these experiences and sharing them, you're helping people do that. And that's why people are watching this podcast right now.
Oh, for sure. And the one thing I always say, especially for younger people, is take advantage of, like, the world we have right now is so accommodating, and it's so much easier to live a quote unquote normal or traditional lifestyle, just because so many people, disability or not, they're working from home. Things are changing to where life with a disability could be easier to manage and function. And not to mention, medicine's getting better, science getting better, all those things. So the doors are opening. If I have any part to do with any inspiration, I just say, then I'm the lucky one in that regard.
Yeah, great. Thank you, man. Do you want to talk a little bit, Anthony, about your difficulties in setting up a podcast, or you're working with the media in particular?
So, yeah, so I find when it comes to making the thumbnails and doing like the tags and stuff, and when it comes to writing emails, that can sometimes be a bit difficult for me. So yeah, when it comes to actually reaching out to people, I tend to like to use social media. I don't know why, but I just find it easier to contact with people on there.
Yeah.
Because with it, I don't know what it is, but with it, emails, I personally feel like I have to go overboard if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
A bit of advice on that front, mate.
Yeah.
Set up a template. That's what I've done. I've got a template email that I use sometimes, and maybe sometimes I just change the wording on certain things depending on the guest. Like, that is how I get round, because I do suffer with my hands at times as well. Like, not having to write out a full email, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. Good. Because I can only use my left hand here, and obviously with video editing and stuff like that, it can be quite difficult sometimes. So it might take me longer to get a podcast out or a video out, or so on and so forth.
Yeah, understandable, man. Tom, do you want to talk about any difficulties you've had in terms of setting up or working the podcast? You've talked a little bit about emails, but is there anything else?
So I don't have, I think it's called pincer grip in my hands. I can use my hands, but I can't grip things. Dom might correct me on the terminology, but I think that's what it's called. Like, I don't have like grip in my hands. So something as simple as like making sure my microphone's in the right place. If someone comes in to look at my room, or not saying I don't clean my room, but you know what I mean. Like, to help me clean my room, I have to say, like, please don't move my microphone, because it's a bit of a ball ache to set it up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
And like, please don't move things. Like I'll give you an example of where I do struggle sometimes. Is you made the joke about my chair being comfortable. It's really not. Especially the chair I'm in at the minute, which is a higher chair, because my chair got broken, as I was telling the boys off camera. And it was like, so I'm behind on recordings where I had to reschedule a lot because I can't sit in a chair for long. And it's like, I have to have a specific routine sometimes to get rid of the discomfort. And sometimes, I don't know if you find this, guys, but I miss out on opportunities because I have to stick to that routine. Does anyone else find that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm, I guess, fortunate in a way that while routines do help, I am able to shift and adjust as needed. And I would say that it's been one of the stronger points I've had in that I can be so flexible with my scheduling and all that because of the fact that I work from home and most of the comfort of what I need is right here anyway. So I've been fortunate in that way, but I will say that having been in a wheelchair for the earlier portions of my life, I do understand the discomfort of sitting in that chair all day and what that can do to your body. Once you get out of it, you just feel like a stone, and I understand that can be very difficult to manage.
Dom, are you? Can you talk about experiences within that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because again, I work from home and I spend a lot of time in this chair in this room doing my actual, doing SoundSphere work, sending emails and things like that. Sometimes it can be, I have to remind myself to get up and do exercise because exercise is painful. Physiotherapy sucks, and I have to do that every day. Myself.
Is that a t-shirt, by the way? Because that should be a t-shirt.
Yeah, maybe it should be. but that's the thing. I have to, so I have a I'm going to do a workout after this, and it's not something I'm going to be, I'm going to be super enthusiastic about, but I need to because I've spent most of my day sitting on this chair and my bum is really numb. But I'm enjoying the conversation, so I'm not thinking about my numb bum.
It's my back more than anything.
Back problems as well. It's because I have scoliosis as well, so it's one of those things that you do get a lot of back pain and things like that. So it's interesting hearing you guys talk about it because I don't think about it that much. And then when you guys, when I'm on it, I'm like, when I'm here, I'm like, I'm not alone. You guys get it. I could talk. About it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because if I complain to Anthony Neylon about my back, he tells me to shut up. So
yes, I do.
But it's a whole thing because I've had this conversation with a few of my, I don't want to say able-bodied, but you know the word I'm looking for, right?
Able-bodied is fine.
Able-bodied friends. It's like unless you're in that position, you can sympathize, but you can't relate. Does that make sense?
Of course not, man.
Yeah, empathize.
Yeah. Guys, this has been absolutely fantastic. We are. Oh, sorry, go on, Anthony.
All I was going to say was thank you for the advice, Tom, and that email. I would definitely do that formula from now on. Thank you, mate.
That's all good, man. And it is all about.
Man, I can. Sorry, Ant. I can send you my template just to give you an idea if you want.
Thank you very much. I would really appreciate that.
And there we go, guys. So we're seeing it. We're seeing it on the stream right now. People supporting each other, and hopefully you all get support from people around you. But let's talk about what advice you'd give to other people out there. What advice you'd give to people trying to do a podcast? What advice you'd give to people who are just struggling? What would you say to them?
People with disabilities and otherwise.
Absolutely.
Neurodivergence as well. We talk a lot. There's a lot of people in the comments with ADHD and neurodiversity. So, and people obviously with anxiety and people that don't, that maybe are inspired by Rob on Fightful or Anthony or Tom watching you guys. They might want to do it, but they're a little bit nervous and anxious. So if we can, go around the room and kind of get some thoughts and advice from each of you, really.
Let's go with Tom.
So my motto has always been just try, because I never thought I'd be in the position I'm in today. Like, I was perfectly happy, Dom knows this, interviewing my carers and interviewing people around me and just doing small interviews like that. But if I hadn't tried and reached out to Adam Pacitti, who was a big person that gave me a shot to do that first interview, I wouldn't be in the position I'm into today. So just reach out and try. And also, like, I'm trying to think of other words. So, like, just if you're having a bad day, remember tomorrow's another day as well.
Yeah, man, that's great advice, Tom. Rob, ready for some profound words?
Yeah, I mean, for those that are struggling specifically with physical disability, my advice would be find what you love. Like wrestling, like that's what this whole thing is. you focus in on wrestling, eventually you're going to find what you want to be out of that and how you can make your own path in what you want to do. And then to those that are struggling just in general, and I think that's a lot of people in the current state of the world, you have to remember that I said this on my podcast with Dom, but don't lose sight of who you are. Remember the good things about you, and then try to form your day and your world around that. And that is what I would say to anyone that's struggling beyond physical disability.
That's really nice advice, man. Seriously good advice for everyone that's listening, I'm sure. Anthony, do you have anything to add, mate?
I would just say something similar to what Robert said. Just don't let society or the people around you change who you are. 'Cause at the end of the day, when we all pass away, you want to be true to who you were as a person, not who anybody else wanted you to be.
That's great advice, man. As well. You guys are like you're a walking a positivity book, and
as
you've all
Dom
been
calls
through
us, we're
different stuff.
inspiration porn.
Inspiration porn. Let's speak to the inspiration. Unmute yourself.
I think that might have been that might have been misinterpreted. I think
we know what you meant. Inspiration porn. I'm going to search for it later on.
No, I think that obviously that term, me and Robert have talked about it. We've all talked about it. Obviously, we can be platformed because of our disabilities, but what I think, as we've talked about today, is how, we're good examples of people. Again, it's letting our work speak for itself. But obviously, the disability, the neurodivergence, can be a part of who we are, but it's not all of what we are. It is a part of it. But what our work speaks for itself, the work we do, the work we leave, the legacy. We talk about this a lot. The legacy that we leave, might be something to do with, cerebral palsy, and maybe motivating a few people in that way, but actually, it's the quality of our work that stands the test of time. And as you guys all know, my mantra when I go and talk to young people or students is, don't be a dick and do good work. So like, so long as none of us.
I thought it was something else.
Well, I can't. Was there a swear word in there? There was probably a swear word in there. But don't be a dick. All right, don't be a dick and do cool shit. Is the mantra. So and we're all, as far as I'm aware, obviously, I know some of you better than others, but I'm very, very happy and very glad and very privileged to know you all. You're all good. You're not all dickheads. You're good people, and you do good work. You do good work, and whether you motivate people because of your because you've been talking about your disability, that's one thing. But obviously, your work motivates people as well. So that's testament to each of you as individuals.
And I mean, don't get it twisted. Like, the positivity is good. The inspiration porn, a wonderful term. And I think a lot of people now, while they're also inspired by it, they can see through some of the fluff around it. And don't get it twisted. This does suck. Like, we're coming on here, we're having a good discussion about, what we've been able to overcome, but this sucks on a day-to-day basis. It's just a matter of not making that the focal point of your existence.
Yes.
Because I spoke about this with Dom. Yeah. I did that for probably far too many years of my life. And at some point, you have to move beyond it. And I think that's what I would say to anyone struggling with anything. You can hold on to the negative because life can't all be sunshine and rainbows. But at some point, you do have to make something that at least you can be proud of.
Yeah, 100%.
I just want to say, just because you might think somebody's inspirational, that doesn't mean that they can't be an arsehole sometimes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, totally, man.
I'd like to confirm that I'm never an asshole. But thank you, Anthony.
I've known you for 54 minutes, and you're a saint.
Absolutely. That's all I
well.
present. Guys, thank you so much for all of that. That was absolutely wonderful. If you've still got a few minutes, I want to go around. There's lots of people who have been sharing their stories in chat, and I think it's really important that we sort of share them. And so I'm just going to go through and read a few comments. If any of you want to add anything, please do. And if any of you in chat who are watching live right now have a specific question they want to ask everyone or a specific member of the groups that we have here, please feel free. So if it's okay, guys, I'm just going to go through some of the chat and see people. Danielle's joined us, who says, since I live with disabilities, can I join the live with you? Daniel, I think in the future, that is absolutely possible. It's quite difficult because we've got 5 people going on right now, but it's something we can definitely look at doing in the future to get people to be able to talk about it, because that feels like a good way to conversate about issues that we're having and find solutions.
I think this has inspired me to maybe do, like I say, do some more interviews around wrestling, and accessibility in the same way, inspired by this, in the same way that we have wrestling with bands on the channel, which, we have bands talking about wrestling and musicians talking about wrestling. We can certainly have that accessibility angle. So if anybody's interested in doing that and having a chat with me, just drop us a we're going to do the cheap plug. We're going to do the plugs for everybody in a bit, but Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, /Give Me a Hull, yeah. Just find us on there and we'll make something happen for sure.
Wrestling with Disabilities coming soon to the Give Me a Hull Yeah channel. Hi, Daniel. I have disabilities too, Mikhail. Absolutely. Mikhail's a regular. Our moderator, Jack, says, yo. A wrestling fan with a party bag of disabilities. Absolutely. And we do hear about them struggles, but it would be great to talk to you more about them, Jack, hopefully. Emma joined us. Sarah joined us. Thank you very much. Daniel's also got ADHD as well. Becky joined us. Smark Out Moment says, woo, Rob, getting some love from Smark Out Moment.
Awesome.
Similar to how different 2 different cases of ataxia guaranteed different. All of you suffer with cerebral palsy on here, and we've talked about a lot of differences that you all find and a lot of inspiration you take from different things as well. And we are all different people ultimately, and so it's great to sort of have us all here to talk about that in a wider sense. Daniel says ADHD is difficult for him too. Yeah, absolutely. ADHD. Is it a
neurodivergent? Yeah.
Divergent disease. Yeah, my partner Becky, who joined us on the podcast, she has ADHD as well. So it's something that we have to manage and find ways of managing. Metalhead 2022. I have ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and yes, it is a disability. And I love wrestling because of how it is. I don't get the question, but hey, it's interesting. I get Metalhead.
I think at the end of the day, it really boils down to wrestling is a great mashup of so many different forms of entertainment, and I think it can be a one-stop shop for people. And I think that there's just nothing like it because of its availability. You don't get a new MC. Well, you used to. Maybe now you do. I was going to say you don't get a new MCU movie every 6 months, but you do. And you get a new
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, but you get a new Raw every Monday night, and I think that's just something that you can always look forward to. And there is just something about it that does grab a lot of neurodivergent people, a lot of people with disabilities, that it's just a very special art form in that way. And that's something I've always been interested in, just the amount of people, the reason they're able to do so much work with, Culture City or Special Olympics, because the amount of people that do genuinely enjoy the art form.
Yeah.
But it really is something.
It certainly is, man. And I think it's also interesting as well.
I think he's frozen.
Did we lose him? I think we might have lost him.
Yeah. Or is it me for a change?
No.
Well, all right.
He's definitely frozen.
Yeah, he is definitely frozen.
Waiting. How does this never happen on a stream? Is Dom frozen as well?
Yeah, I think they have both gotten frozen. I do not know if we are still live, but if we are still live,
we're still live, pal. But
you can.
here we go.
Oh, here we go. They're refreshing.
Well, that was
Oh no,
now
lost them
Dom's
completely.
gone.
All right.
Okay.
So, with that being said, I will say that you can follow me everywhere at DeFelice. You can follow Fightful.com. That's where you get all your great news. And hey, I think we got him back.
He's
All right.
back.
Hello.
That
Sorry.
was odd.
Apparently, Hull just completely dropped its internet, and me and Dom just completely disappeared. We are back now, though, and we're back with Dom. Sorry, guys, about that.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
I'm here.
I think an EMP just went off in Hull, Dom. Something. They'll make a film about it one day.
All right, okay. That's the problem with living in Hull, guys.
I
Anyway,
thought it was me because my internet's normally trash.
well, thank you guys for carrying on and staying with us while we disappeared.
Yeah, I was going to jump into plugs. I didn't know if you guys were going to be able to come back, but since we were still alive, just trying to fill air.
We have remained live, and thank you. And it's a credit to Tom, Anthony, and Robert. We've got you guys on the stream to carry it for us while our local city internet dies. Anyway, carry on. Where were we at before we?
Rock and roll. Of course, ASD is a disability. Good morning from Tokyo, Japan. Good morning from Tokyo, Japan. We've got people all over the world tuning in for this, guys. It seems like Anthony's had a problem getting on. Hopefully, he can sort it out soon. I have that too. Yes, Robert says, wrestle friends. Robert, everyone's coming to see you, mate.
Well, listen, I always appreciate the great circle of people that I have met in this field, and I can add you guys onto that. I've been very, very fortunate.
Rock and roll, dude. Rock and roll. And speaking of rock and roll, Metalhead says, music and wrestling is my escape from this thing called life. Cool, man.
I agree with that, to be completely honest.
Yeah, cool. It's my escape from life as well. Absolutely. I don't even have a disability. It's absolutely my escape. ADHD, says Emma. Shira, my first experience into professional wrestling, my adopted got me watching wrestling back in 1997. Fantastic. I hate having ADHD, says Daniel. Well, hopefully you can find coping mechanisms to help you as much as possible do that. I'm sure we can talk to you about that in the future. Shira's sharing the memory of watching Hollywood Hulk versus Lex Luger. Great fun. Metalhead's also got a learning difficulty. Wrestling is a very exciting sport. It certainly is. Daniel, we will absolutely talk to you about having a wrestling disability. Not a wrestling disability. Wrestling with disabilities. Oh, wrestling with disabilities, Dom. That's the name of the new series, mate.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll talk about it. Absolutely. We'll definitely get the advice of Rob and Anthony and Tom as well. We're doing that because it'd be great to consult you guys and make sure that we get the tone right, because we want to represent as many people and support the community as best we can. So we'll definitely value you guys, your inputs where your time allows it. We'll definitely feedback to you guys really as well. Cool. Yeah.
That's all wrestling is, a superhero show. My mum had leukemia, says Daniel. That's awful to hear, mate. I identify myself as John Moxley of my personality. Nice. Again, finding elements of ourselves. And I think we all do. I think that's why we gravitate to certain wrestlers, because we're like, oh, yeah, I get that. Oh, I get that difficulty that they're having. Sarah says, I love to dance. Being hypermobile, I'm very accident prone, but I see the beauty in movements of wrestling. It gives me inspiration to strengthen my body, to look after myself more. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah. That's a very interesting thing. Hypermobility as well.
What does that mean?
Hypermobility, it's where your joints are more flexible than they should be. I have hypermobility, and I've also had ACL operations because of it. So, yeah, not a disability per se, but it can be in severe circumstances. Emma says, I definitely have a love-hate relationship with ADHD. Sometimes I can use it to my advantage. Some days it can cause me to feel like I've stuck. It's always about trying to move forward. And I'm sure you guys have exactly the same with all of your disabilities.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
Absolutely.
Like, one thing I will say is I do have a lot of, I don't want to call them depression. That's the wrong word. But like, I do have a lot of days where it's like, do I want to do this anymore? Like with when the pain gets too much, do you know what I mean? I'm like, do I want to sit at the computer anymore? Like, am I enjoying this? Does anyone else have that?
Right. That's exactly why I said, listen, we can get on here and talk about the good stuff, but don't get it twisted. This does suck. You know, you can't.
Yeah.
There is no
Yeah.
hiding it. This is a very difficult existence, and it is about finding the best ways to navigate it.
Totally agree with that. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, absolutely, man. I also have high mobility, Sarah. My two boys do. I think I'm same love hate as Emma with my ataxia and ADHD. It must be difficult. I mean, I don't have any of these disabilities, but it is difficult to overcome, and it is something that we have to live with every day.
Something. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay, Tom.
Yeah.
All I was going to say is something that I find is like when things go wrong for us, like I was talking about my broken wheelchair a little bit earlier. It's like you are stuck a lot more than, say, someone else would be in that scenario. So say, like, for example, your car breaks down quite easily to get it fixed. It's not always easy to get a wheelchair or anything like that fixed. Would you agree with that, guys?
Yeah. Especially for me.
Sorry, go on, Rob.
Oh no,
Oh,
Anthony, go
wow.
ahead.
No, it's fine, man. Honestly,
It's just like it is difficult if, let's say, your wheelchair breaks down and that's your one source of mobility. You know, that's going to put a strain on your life that some may not be able to understand. But you know, again, it's a love-hate relationship, because not that you love the circumstances, but at some point you just come to accept it as part of who you are. So you do end up finding aspects of it that it's like, okay, this is a good thing, or this is something that I've learned to make a positive of the situation I'm in. But yeah, it is very difficult, especially when something as serious as your wheelchair breaking down could happen.
Yeah.
Like for example,
Did you want to comment on that, Tom?
Anthony's here.
Yeah, let Anthony go, man. Yeah.
I can't hear Anthony.
Okay. There he is. Thank you.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can
What,
you hear me?
what I was saying was, obviously, when it's like a thunderstorm, and you care that I have an electric wheelchair or a powered one. So when it was like that tree, and you're like in the pouring rain, it's like can life get any worse than this? But after a couple of days, it made for the story to tell. So I guess what I'm trying to say, even though it might be a horrible experience at the time, depending on the situation, you can see the funny side of it. Obviously, depending on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Did you guys have anything to add to that? Thank you, Anthony, for that point as well. Again, it is kind of different perspective, isn't it? Really. So, Tom, did you have anything to add to that?
Just the fact that not that we should end up with more funny stories, but I find I end up with a lot more funny stories than my able-bodied mates, just because of the scenarios I can get myself into, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I guess, and it depends on everybody's perspective, because again, different people find different things, funny, as it were. But again, it's all about that person. So it's about that person's social circle and how they're supported in their environment. You know what I mean? There's so many different factors.
Ant's
to
gone.
Anthony's just. Oh, he's back now. He's back. No.
Are you guys?
Anthony's gone. My Anthony's gone. Okay, Anthony Neylon is gone. Right. He was hosting.
The one guy without cerebral palsy, and he can't even get it right.
And the one guy
doing
that
here?
I say this all the time. How's he supposed to keep us in line? That never happens.
Well, the problem I've got, I couldn't see Anthony, so I couldn't hear him or see him or anything. So when he was obviously trying to speak, I couldn't see him. Anyway, let's get through these comments, guys. Sorry, Anthony, I'm sure you made a great point, but I didn't hear a bloody word.
It was a very good point. I
bet it was.
He told the meaning of life, and you missed it, buddy. I don't know what to say.
I don't have all the answers. All the answers that you guys are giving me. I don't even know where I am in comments either. Being weird is awesome, says Shiro. It sucks at times. Distinct Emma. Most people think it's fun that you can blend into places not normal people can't. Talking about hypermobility again. To me, hypermobility is just a party trick. I can bend my arm around and hopefully try and get a pint out of it, but it doesn't often work. It's not that impressive. Your guys' disabilities are all way more impressive than my hypermobility.
Oh well, that's an interesting sentence. Anyway, carry on.
Christopher says, even though I don't have a disability, I respect everyone in the chat and everybody that is doing this live right now. You guys are tough people and an inspiration, 100%. And I absolutely share that sentiment, Christopher. Thank you for
Thank you very much, mate. Cheers for coming.
Sarah says, I have a crotch goblin, but for those that don't know, he's a child with ASD and one with possible ADHD. I see these conditions from a different perspective. Yeah, two of my partner's children have ASD and ADHD, and it's something that we have to manage, which can be difficult. You sound like Zack Sabre Jr. Who does?
I'm gonna go with that being you.
Is that me?
Yeah.
It's definitely not the American.
It's definitely not.
It is you, dude.
It's not me. I wish I did. Zack Sabre Jr.'s got a wonderful accent, but that ain't me.
He does, absolutely.
Nice, man. It could be me. I could be the wonderful accent dude. I love Japanese professional wrestling as well as my favorite wrestlers, Kushida and Goto. Interesting. One of the documentaries that come out of, which I wanted to talk about, but I didn't know if we'd get time, and maybe we can investigate it more in the future, was the Doglegs documentary, which is about people wrestling in Japan with disabilities. Yes. Rob, you've seen that, have you?
So I have seen it. This was something that, again, I've spoken about my desire to eventually do something actually within wrestling. I have seen the Doglegs documentary, and that is a different kind of wrestling where I think it's a bit more on the barbaric side, and it's Japanese people with disabilities choosing like this kind of it's more like an MMA. It's kind of like a hybrid fight kind of life, and it's I mean, pretty intense. I mean, there's all ranges of disability doing that. And that documentary, I'd recommend it to anyone who wants to learn more, because some of the stuff has to be seen to be believed.
I want to check that out. So if someone wouldn't mind putting me in contact with it, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I think is it dog legged or dog legs?
It's dog legs. I believe the documentary is at least on Google Play. It might also be on YouTube. It's a very good documentary. It's not going to be professional wrestling the way that you think it is. It's kind of its own thing, but it's definitely something very unique that the disabled community in Japan had at one point in time. I'm sure it's still going in some circles, but it's very unique. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it's an interesting way to see how other people on the other side of the world with disabilities choose to live their life and what they want to do.
Yeah, it's almost this kind of aggressive as hell therapy.
Yes,
where you get beat up a hell of a lot, and the idea is eventually you will overcome that, but you won't overcome that straight away, and they're in total control of it. And we can talk. There's a whole conversation about ethics of that and all that sort of stuff.
I had a conversation about that when I started my boxing, and people were like, we don't want to hit you because of your chair. I was like, but at the end of the day, you're not treating me as an equal then. You're going easy on me.
Good point.
I was like, hit me. Like, if I get hurt, it's my own fault at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, interesting.
It's down to the choice, isn't it? It's your choice. You make that choice, and you have the autonomy, which we all deserve to have that,
exactly.
that ability to make our own choices. And you made your choice. If you get knocked down, you'll have to
get back up again.
Get back up again.
And if you're interested in that aspect of combat, then the Doglegs documentary is for you, because there is a line in that movie where one of their caretakers said, I have to come to terms with the fact that if this is how he wants to die, I sort of have to let him do that if he's making that choice.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in that aspect of it, this may be for you.
Absolutely.
I'll definitely have a look.
Definitely check it out, guys. Emma says, I love hearing all the experiences each of you had from watching wrestling and how it inspired you all. I've enjoyed it as well, Emma, so thank you, everyone. Loving this guy, says Sam S. As a guy with autism, Don may not know this about me, wrestling was a real grounding influence and helped me find friends as a kid. Interesting, because we all find friends as well through wrestling as well. It's something that we can talk about. It's our soap, guys. It's our Corrie.
Interestingly enough, Sam Smith, who has commented and come on to make that comment, is a wrestling journalist, and he does some features for us at Soundsphere. And we met a few years back, and he does some cracking work. So he's a great journalist, and I didn't actually know that about him. So there you go. You know, I've been working with him for a year now, and that's the first I knew of that. So there you are.
I have questions regarding wrestling being a grounding influence, because sometimes when I watch wrestling, the last thing it is grounding. But you know,
it gets me hyped. I don't know if anyone else finds that.
But it depends what style of wrestling you watch. Like, I imagine if you watch like grappling, like it could be grounding.
I suppose it's the escapism thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool, man. I've known Dom since 2006. I only found out what disability Dom had in 2020. You can find out about mine and how I found out about Dom's disability in the interview on Tom's channel. And
I love that story, by the way.
Going after the same
I love that story.
Yeah.
Have you seen it, Anne?
Yes, I saw it. Yeah.
I love that story.
Thanks for watching, guys.
It's a good one. Thank you all for your comments. Thank you. This is important because for so long I've thought my ataxia and Asperger's means I'm in total isolation, and I'm not. No, we don't want any of you to feel isolated. You know, that's what all of our efforts in creating a community is about. It's about creating a positive place. We try not to be a negative sort of place, a place for people to hang out. You know, I'm sure we even do that. Even Rob with Fightful. You know, it's not about being negative. It's about reporting in your job proper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously there are some negative parts to that as well, but I'll obviously let Rob speak on that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, listen, Fightful is a massive platform, and with that massive platform, you're gonna get every kind of comment. A lot of them are really good, and you know, there are some people who aren't. I'm I guess fortunate in the way that a lot of it isn't directed at me, because I'm sort of like, you know, third charge, let's say like a C tier guy, because there's Sean Ross Sapp and Jeremy Lambert. They usually get a lot of the heat. But yeah, it can be difficult, as can doing anything on the internet. I mean, like, honestly, putting yourself out there for the entire world to comment on literally everything you do can be a lot. So kudos to anyone that does that.
You okay? You all right, mate?
Yeah, sorry. Had to sit up for a sec. My back went into a massive spasm.
It's okay. Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. Is being open about how you're feeling. So we are finishing up. We're just going to go through the rest of the comments.
I'm diagnosed with bipolar depression and anxiety, says Shire. This is a fantastic stream. I missed the beginning, but I actually plan on watching it later. Well, hopefully you find some great stories in there, because these guys have shared some wonderful stories. Porn, what's that, says Jack? Search for it on Google.
Don't search for it on Google.
Bippity boppity, whatever.
Listen, you can do whatever you want to do in your personal time. I'm not going to tell you that.
That's true. Yeah.
Are we bad people?
I'm a wonderful person.
I'm a wonderful person that searches for inspirational porn. All right.
It's if you search for the Gimme a Hull Yeah only fans, we don't want that. Yeah, don't search for Gimme a Hull Yeah porn.
I believe it's
I've
only ants.dom.
Head that I don't
only ants.dom. Yeah.
That Dom plays in a lot of different ways, doesn't it?
It does.
No, his disability doesn't hold him back, I tell you, Rob. Daniel says porn is known as a good evening. Well, great advice, says Emma. Everyone's popping for the porn.
All the other stuff.
Right, the rest of it's been shite. But when you said search for inspirational porn, this is great advice for everybody. Go search for inspiration.
That's right.
Oh God.
Wait, and it's never a bottom. Great advice for everyone. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you for joining us. I would like to join as well. Shira, we can absolutely do that in the future. If you just send my friend Dom here a message on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, because he's way better at getting back at people. I text my specific comment to Mr. Dom.
Yes,
WWA should be an ongoing series. We can absolutely look at that. Hello, Anthony. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Bippity boppity, whatever's got a question. So we're at that point in the stream. We are nearly wrapping this up, guys. My question is the same as always. Who's your favorite wrestler in Choker Pro? Just having fun. I missed the beginning. May have been said already, but generally, what's the biggest wrestling moment for everyone? What made you feel connected, like really connected? Says Bippity boppity, whatever.
I know.
Let's focus on these guys. Yeah.
Oh, I'll say this. I'll say that my big wrestling moment came from watching the CM Punk return. Just to talk about a recent return, like that was such a very emotional moment in a time where I think everybody's kind of cynical on wrestling. You know, we all know the ins and outs of it. So that was one of these like aha moments where real emotion was flowing. Granted, it's gone the way that it's gone. But, you know, I have to say that it's a beautiful moment, and August 20th, 2021 will live on forever.
Yes, it was an interesting year. That's for sure. Anyone else moment that made you feel connected? Let's go, Tom.
So there's two, and I know that's cheating, but it's either the Batista face turn when he finally turned on Evolution, because he was my guy when I started watching. But it's also because I watched this moment so many times with my dad. It's the flaming table spot from Mania 22 where Edge spears Foley through the table.
Yeah, man.
Great moment, man. Great moment. Foley's pod has been great, actually. Anthony, do you have any to share with us, my dude?
I'm just gonna say when Brian Daniels retired. So that's it.
What, the fight for your dreams moment?
No, do you know when Brian Daniels retired? Yeah. But you had the whole thing with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
And that whole segment,
Nice.
I think that was my favorite moment, or whatever, however you want to word it.
Right, nice. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's nice, man. It was a good moment. I think it was a good moment for everyone watching, or an interesting moment for sure. And thankfully, he got back to it because he's doing great work. Jack says, I trained to wrestle briefly before Ataxia got horrific. Unfortunately, my teacher was an awful human.
I mean, it's wrestling, brother. You know, that's unfortunately some of the stuff you have to deal with. But I will say the Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan comeback moment was interesting because we all talked about, you know, being concerned about injury on this podcast. And it was amazing to me to know that Daniel Bryan went from, you can't touch him, to, okay, you're cleared. Why don't we just drop him on the apron and see? Let's see how his next.
See how he handles it. Yeah. That's funny. Ant made me nearly lose a pint, but my ninja skills caught it. Never been more proud, proving that even with Ataxia, you can have ninja skills in Jack. Only ants.dom is penetrating, says Jack. That's our tagline. Yeah, that's for sure. This live stream has been awesome. What an honor to be here. Christopher, we're honored to have you, my dude. And subscribe to the channel. We are going to do more conversations like this, especially opening up in the future. This is a great stream, guys. Wrestling really can bring all people together. I love it. David, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm glad you've enjoyed it. And hopefully,
you know what I find really weird?
Go on, my dude.
Sometimes it's like I've never met any of you guys in person, but I'd honestly say, especially like Dom and Anthony, like I'd say you're two of my closest friends, which is very like, do you know what I mean? Like,
that's
very weird.
Yeah,
like we've never met in person, but I would definitely say you two are definitely two of my closest friends.
That's awesome.
And I have a really good relationship with Rob and Anthony as well. Like,
absolutely.
This has just been a load of fun, guys.
You call my Anthony out on his S word, so You know.
Yeah, I will say this: Dom smells in real life.
Shut up. Come on, let's finish up. Come on,
CM
people are
Punk
places to
returned.
be.
Wait, have you ever done improv? Joking. That one moment that made me feel connected when Mick is about to win the belt for the first time. Someone tries to break his pin, and Billy Gunn spears like he was shot from a cannon to stop it. Absolutely, cracking moment there.
Beautiful.
Hi, Anthony. I have autism and a learning disability. Absolutely, Mikhail, and push forward it, and I'm sure we can talk about that more in the future. Thank you for sharing that. Bippity bobbity, whatever. You don't know, Jack. Thank you for sharing. Earliest for me would be Mankind. When I was young, he seemed unique. Unlike any other wrestler, just so unique, at least to me. More recently, it was the Lulu pencil story with Chris Brooks. Was so good.
What is that?
I don't know. I don't know.
Lulu
What that
Pencil. She's the Joshi wrestler. She was in AEW briefly.
Oh, cool.
I guess she told a great story in the ring with Chris Brooks. I can't say that I've seen this with my own eyes, but I know Lulu Pencil is a fan favorite.
Thank you.
Bippity bobbity, whatever. Massive fan of Pro Wrestling, even Choco Pro, always over there. Jack will leave this as the last comment. Also, when Austin was at the height of Austin McMahon and still saves Steph from Marion Taker, and JR says he did it because it was right. Then Vince Mouse, thank you. Hi. There we go, man. Another great moment. Another great moment. Speaks volume about rivals can get along, so anyone can. Interesting. Guys, I'm going to end it there. I'm going to say a massive thank you to everyone that's joined me. And I'd love for you to plug the channel. Obviously, Dom's already wrote them all in the description, aren't you, Dom?
Yes. Yes, I have.
It will be edited in.
It will
If
be
you
there.
check the link in the description below, if you're watching in the future, you can absolutely find links to these guys. So let's go from top to bottom. Tom, tell us about your podcast, what you do, where you can find it, and all your social medias.
So you can find me on a little YouTube channel called Tom Talks Irish, where I interview many of the greats in the wrestling media and just people that I find really interesting, such as these four fine gentlemen here. You can also find me on bodyslam.net, on the WrestleWatch podcast, sometimes with Cassidy Haynes, sometimes with a sometimes with a bodyslam.net colleague. But as you always, guys, this has been a bunch of fun. Thank you for having me. You can also follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Irish.
Nice.
You rock, Tom. Thank you very much. Anthony, tell us about you, mate. Where can we find you?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Talk One. Same thing on Instagram. You can go and support the podcast on wherever you get your podcast from. You can go and subscribe to me on YouTube. Just Anthony. I make a variety of different content, and I have a variety of different people on from all different backgrounds. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here, man.
Pleasure.
It's been absolutely great having your insight. Dom, where can people find you?
Do we have to do this? Right, okay. So for those that don't know, I have a platform called Soundsphere, and we do music, wrestling, comic books, movies. It's at soundspheremag.com, soundspheremag.com. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've got interviews with WWE stars like Drew McIntyre, Bianca Belair, all from Clash of the Castle. And I also co-host the Give Me a Hull Yeah Wrestling podcast with the wonderful Anthony Neylon, who has been a wonderful host and moderator for today's stream. So please give it up if you're watching this afterwards or now for Anthony Neylon for his wonderful work. One of my best friends in the world. Couldn't do this without him. So yeah, that's the Give Me a Hull Yeah podcast. Also subscribe to Soundsphere. I'm wobbling about and rocking out because we do accessibility stuff. I should have really led with that.
I mean, that's a good one to lead with on the disability podcast.
So I'm so used to Soundsphere. Waro, it's waro.co.uk, waro.co.uk, and we have stories with people, sports. People in motorsport, people in wrestling, people in music, the arts, telling their stories around working with disability difference or neurodiversity. So go and check that out as well. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, all that wobbling about rocking out.
Thank you so much.
Let me just say,
Yeah,
that
absolutely. Right.
you've got interviews with sports stars and all these people, and then me, and then I come in and I'm kind of just
And
this
then
guy who
me,
just talks
somehow
about
as
living
well.
with a disability.
You are a media personality, and I'm very, 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 very proud. I'm very, very proud to have you on the site. It was my most recent chat, actually. So good plug. There you go. You've reminded me. My most recent chat with the mighty Rob DeFelice from Fightful, and that is a segue to Rob to plug his stuff. But please go check out our interview with Rob, and also our interviews with Tom Talks Rubbish and Anthony on Waro. Please.
To confirm, I said about plug-in, and then I went to your screen, and you went, "Oh, I don't want to plug," and then you just don't shut up. Plug in.
Yeah, but this is like I'm always talking about stuff on this podcast. Like you didn't need to go at me. You didn't need to go.
Are
at
they
me,
about to do?
No, I want you to
Guys,
talk
don't
about
argue
walking
like
out.
a married couple. It upsets the kids.
Listen. I don't think they argue like a married couple. We got the plugs in, we got the doms. I think they're fine. I think they got a lot of spice in whatever relationship they've got going on.
It's very spicy.
If you want to know more about me, you should absolutely check out that podcast. I will say that has been a big hit in the personal circle, in the family circle. So Dom, I thank you for that one. But on the work front, check out Fightful. Check out Fightful.com and Fightful Select. Sean Ross Sapp works his ass off, as does the entire team. It's an honor truly to be a part of it. And then you can check me out on my personal socials at DeFelice. That's on Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter. And I thank you guys, and I hope to talk to you guys again soon.
We will absolutely make it happen. Thank you so much. Just a note, bippity bobbity whatever, with a super chat there, $20. This was great. Thank you for entertaining my comments and questions. All the best to all of you. Anytime, bippity bobbity whatever. Anytime at all. David says, thanks, guys. I had to subscribe. You guys are all great. While this is me and Dom on the channel, please do make sure you go and support these other guys, because they've got wonderful content, and watch everything that we can. And obviously, Fightful Select do incredible work. Absolutely incredible work. And this is the dude that's backstage doing it all. They argue more than me and Dom ever have. Yeah, that's our relationship, isn't it, Dom? Guys, I'm going to sign us out there. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's been really, truly great to talk to you all, and thank you for opening up. And I'm sure we'll talk about doing something like this again. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to these guys. The links are going in the description as soon as we finish this video. You all rock. And until next time, do the countdown thing, Dom, because I hate doing it. It's so sad.
All right. Okay. I'll do it. For those who don't know, we do live streams. We do a countdown. We do a countdown like shut up, Anthony. I'm signing
We need
out.
a better sign out, man. This is rubbish.
We do a countdown like a claymore from 5.
Countdown like a claymore.
And then we do. I know it's only a 3, but we do 5. And then we do jazz hands and whole yeah. Jazz hands and we say whole yeah. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whole yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jazz hands. Whole yeah.
This is the hardcore legend, Mick Foley. Well, hello and welcome to Give Me a Oh Yeah. I hope everyone there, right there in Yorkshire, is having a nice day. Bang, bang. Have a nice day. Yeah.